What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Week one of the NFL season is in the books, and Matt and I are here to blatantly overreact to all 16 games that we saw this weekend. We'll be throwing out our week one overreactions, followed by the correct take to help you guys feel better about your teams. And I don't know, maybe some of you are going to feel a little bit worse when this podcast is over. But before we get started, just a reminder, you can reach out to us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening, and we would love to hear from you. Let us know how you're feeling about your team during the NFL season. Matt and I are going to both be pretty happy today because the Lions and the Patriots of New England are 1-0, baby. That's right. I am going to be obnoxious as hell this episode. The Patriots won a football game. Let's go. All right, Matt is here, which means we're just a couple of guys sitting here after week one whose favorite football teams are 1-0. Matt, if I told you at any point this season that the Lions had the same record as the Patriots, would you just assume that something went horribly, horribly wrong?
Most likely.
Or horribly, horribly right for the Patriots, which is kind of what happened on Sunday. But we do have 1 week of NFL football under our belt, and it is such a good feeling to have it back and to come on the podcast for the first time this year and have real football games that actually happen to talk about with you.
Yeah. And I have to retract what I told you via text on Sunday. The funniest thing that could have happened in the division this week wasn't what I told you. It was the Green Bay Packers being the only team in the division to not have a win.
For the AFC East, the Jets are the only team that didn't win this weekend. And it's like,
I could have told you that was going to happen.
It just makes so much sense. There was a point this weekend where it looked like the Patriots were going to win, and then the Bills and Miami were both going to lose. And I was like, oh, the Jets are probably going to lose Monday Night Football. We may be 1-0 and everybody else could be 0-1. And I could, at least for a week, capture the glory days all over again.
I thought it was funny. Someone was comparing Aaron Rodgers' stat line from that game to Zach Wilson's stat line from week one last year, and it's like almost exactly the same.
Yeah. We're gonna overreact to all the games here in a moment, but I do want to talk about Rodgers a little bit today. So you wake up on Monday or Tuesday, whatever day you woke up after your team played, and your team is either 1-0 and you're on top of the world and the season is full of hope, or your team is 0-1 and you are devastated and the season is over and everything is awful. And it's the same thing in fantasy. Like if you won week one, like notoriously hard week to win, notoriously unpredictable week.
Yeah.
If you won, you feel great. You're like, oh my God, I drafted the best team ever. And if you lost, you kind of feel like shit. So before we get into the overreactions from week one, I want to put out the disclaimer that it is just 1 week. We're going to look back on week one in a couple weeks and just be like, wow, that game was super weird. Or like, can't believe Alan Lazard was wide receiver 3 in fantasy for a week. That's crazy. And we'll kind of forget about it as time goes on. But since it is the first week and we've been waiting for football for so long, this is overreaction week, baby. This is the week where I get on the podcast and my 1-0 Patriots are going to the Super Bowl. Let me enjoy it for 1 week. Just let me enjoy it for 1 week. So that said, Matt and I are going to blatantly overreact to 9 of the 16 games that we saw this weekend. We came up with 9 overreactions from the first week of the NFL season. I'll give you the overreaction, and then we'll both give what we believe the correct take is. And maybe the overreaction is the correct take in some of these cases. So I put these in order of when the games happen. So we're getting in the
Yeah.
Wayback Machine, like we do from time to time on the podcast. We're going all the way back to Thursday night, the very first game of the season, Ravens at Chiefs. The first overreaction, the Ravens are a paper tiger. For people who don't know what a paper tiger is, we use
Rawr.
that. Yeah, we use that phrase. Matt's excited because he's got little lions in his virtual background today. The Lions beat the Rams in overtime. But a paper tiger is something that looks very scary, but when you actually go to deal with it, it's not as scary as it looks.
Yeah. Sums it up.
So do you believe that they actually are a paper tiger, or what's the correct take here?
I don't think I'm gonna go that far. I do think that if you watched the game and even just like looked at the stats and how much they threw the ball, like you really have to question how much they've learned anything from that playoff game. However, I will also say that man, they were a couple of deep balls away from like kind of taking control of that game too. That that's the thing with these games is like you can't miss those opportunities. Um, maybe Lamar cleans that up over the course of this season, but I think what we've noticed over the years with this core is like they haven't been able to do that. They haven't been able to clean up those little things. I mean, I can tell you when Lamar is going to miss that deep ball just by watching his drop. Because as the game went on, he got more and more bouncy. He stopped getting in that really like nice, kind of like firm statuesque drop and ripping it. When he starts bouncing around, that's when he sails it. They have everything they need to be a real threat. And they're probably better than all but one team in the NFL because that one team has Patrick Mahomes. But like you also need to see them like actually clean it up and play that pristine football in order to do it.
Yeah, I thought they played a pretty good game on Thursday. Obviously, they were
Mhm.
one play away from either going to overtime or trying to win it with a 2-point conversion at the end there. And
Yeah.
Likely's toe hits the line, which that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's probably
That's
the right call, but part of me is like, do you call that in that situation? Like,
yeah.
like, I don't know. But I mean, they were in that position in the first place because Zay Flowers was standing in the middle of a cornfield with his arms
Yep.
wide open in the middle of the end zone, and Lamar missed him by a mile.
Yeah.
Horrible. I thought that was the worst throw of the night. Um, the thing that was more concerning for me is that Lamar Jackson had to be Superman for the entire
Mhm.
game to keep them in it. He's
Yeah.
goes 26 of 41, which you're right is like after all of the talk and Lamar Jackson coming out before the game, and he's like, man, fuck passing. I'm a
Yeah.
runner and I feel great. And if I had felt like this, we would have beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. He throws 41 times, goes 26 of 41, 273 and a touchdown, but runs 16 times for 122. And like the addition of Derrick Henry, uh,
Hmm.
the first drive,
Only got what 13 carries.
yeah. But the first drive, I was texting you and I was like, oh, this could actually be a problem because
Yep.
they were pounding Henry up the middle, and then Lamar pulled it out for option
Yeah.
keeper and ran for like
Hmm.
15 yards. And I was like, ooh, that looked nice. But Derrick Henry, 13 carries for 46, didn't really go anywhere.
Hmm.
And they didn't really get Andrews involved. Like
Yeah.
as good as Likely looked, like Andrews is your best player outside of Lamar Jackson. So
Yeah. I mean, after that first drive, like it really did just kind of become that, all right, go put on your cape situation.
Yeah.
And I struggle with that because of the talk that they had in the offseason too about like trying to make Lamar like essentially the GOAT. And it's like, okay, well, like, did you guys get that touchdown on the first drive and then decide, all right, well, like, let's start padding this guy's legacy?
Yeah. But also, we're probably sitting here having a completely different conversation if Isaiah Likely's toe is 1 inch shorter,
Yep.
right? Like, if he does throw that game tying touchdown, they were going to go for two and try to win
Yeah.
it. And they either
Yep.
win it or lose it. But, if he had 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran for 122, we would just be like, holy shit, Lamar. Is this
Yeah.
another MVP season? But since they don't get it, we're sitting here being like, oh, well, I don't know about the Ravens. So we'll see. I thought that call at the end was the right call. The one that I thought was absolutely inexcusable and just, I got like the one that made me jump off my couch and go, what the hell? And I'm still mad about it was the very end of the second quarter. The Ravens are driving down. Kansas City's defense is extremely confused. And defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo runs down to call
Yep.
a timeout, which, if you know the rules of the NFL,
Not allowed.
not allowed. Only the head coach can call a timeout from the sideline.
Mhm.
It should have been a penalty.
Yep.
Baltimore ball at the 1. Instead, they give Kansas City the timeout. Kansas City gets the defense set, gets the stop, and the Ravens have to kick a field goal.
Yeah.
Absolutely unacceptable. Like, the NFL needs to at least try to hide their bias this season. We know you want to see Taylor Swift at the Super Bowl in the three-peat. We get it. You didn't have to do that week 1.
Which, like, let's be honest, it's gonna happen anyways. You didn't need it to happen like in this game.
No, and it was like, it was immediate for me. I jumped off my couch and yelled, "What the F?"
Yeah.
Because I was like, that's a penalty. That's a penalty. And
Yeah.
it didn't happen. It's like Chris Webber taking too many timeouts. It's like, that's it. You can't do that. You can't do that. So, all right. Overreaction number 2. We go from the Thursday night game in Kansas City to a Friday game in Brazil, which, don't even get me started on the Friday game in Brazil. Uh, Overreaction number 2. The Green Bay Packers season is over. It's done. Jordan Love hurt on the very last play of the game. Rumor is he's going to miss the next 3 to 4 weeks with an MCL sprain. And one of Matt's favorite prospects of all time, Malik Willis, is taking the reins for the Green Bay Packers.
I am going to laugh so hard if he just balls out the next 3 weeks.
So what's the correct take here? Is their season actually over?
Maybe. That is entirely possible.
Mm-hmm.
If they go 0-3 the next 3 games, you're not making the playoffs starting 0-4. It's not happening. So, I mean, it's possible, but like this is also the NFL, and as much as people probably want to dunk on Malik Willis, like he's still an NFL athlete, and like we've seen backup QBs come in and like steal a game here and there. So
Yeah.
they might steal one, and that might be all they need to kind of keep themselves alive.
I agree. My correct take was, yeah, it might be over if they can't steal 1 or 2. So
Mhm.
Jordan Love's out 3 to 4 weeks. Obviously, they're 0-1 after losing to Philly. Their next 4 are home for the Colts, at the Titans, home for the Vikings, and at the Rams. In that Rams game, it's like that could be when Love comes back. We'll see. Even if you steal one of those games and you're 1-4, it's still such a tall task, because then you got to go like 9-3 the rest of the season to get to 10-7, which is probably going to be like where the playoffs are in the NFC. It's going to be like that 9-10 win mark. And it's not exactly an easy remaining schedule once Jordan Love does come back. Like you're gonna have both games against the Lions, you're gonna have
Hmm.
both games against the Bears in your division. You have other big games, so yeah,
Yeah.
it could be over. Overreaction number 3 going into Sunday. Matt, the Falcons are gonna fuck me again.
Yep.
Yeah, I have the correct take as yes. They're going to fuck me again. Goddamn Falcons, man. They started off the season with an 18-10 loss to Pittsburgh.
Hmm.
And now they're looking at Monday Night Football at Philadelphia this week, followed by Sunday Night Football at home against the Chiefs. They could very easily be 0-3. The schedule gets a lot softer after that, but one of my big takeaways from this weekend was I thought Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers looked very rusty as older quarterbacks coming off of major
Hmm.
injuries. And it's like, is it rust or are they bad now? But like in Kirk Cousins' case,
Yeah.
he was a statue on Sunday. He was afraid to push off that back leg and go ahead.
Yep. Well, and even just driving off of it to like drill a pass in there, it didn't look like he had that same tendency to just rip it.
Yeah. I do think on the other side of this, though, that there's a possibility that Pittsburgh just has the best defense in the league this season. That basically they're just going to go to their quarterbacks until like, so Field starts for Pittsburgh on Sunday and he goes 17 of 23 for 156 yards, 14 rushes for 57. And it looked like the game plan was like, just don't mess it up. Like the defense is going to dominate. TJ Watt was awesome. Our kicker is going to hit 6 field goals. And as long as you don't make a game losing mistake, we will win. And I feel like that just could be the formula for the Steelers this year, and that they're going to win 9, 10, 11 games. And just every game is going to be like 18-10, 23-17. And the defense is just going to be really good. And as long as the quarterbacks don't make the fatal mistake, that they'll win, they'll be over 500, basically.
That's such a huge if.
I know. But they
I
Fields was fine. This is like one of
yeah,
Fields' best games of his career, as far as like just
such a low bar.
I know, but just like as far as being a game manager, because he's obviously had bigger
Yeah.
statistical performances, but like keeping the ball safe and just keeping the
Yeah.
offense on track, it was like it was pretty good.
Yeah.
So
I will say one of the funniest things about this game too was Russell Wilson dressed on the sideline while he's inactive.
in full pads and jersey.
Like, yeah.
I hate Russell Wilson so much. Like every time that I see him, I'm just like, God,
So
that's
does the
so
entire Denver organization.
it's so Russell Wilson. I thought the funniest part of this game was that my bold prediction for the Pittsburgh Steelers this season was that they'll somehow throw for less yards than they did last year. They averaged 187.8 yards per game in the air last year, threw for 156 on Sunday. We are on pace, Matt. We're going to nail it. It's going to be the best bold ever.
Incredible.
Also, the one thing I will say is Bijan Robinson, 21 touches, over 100 yards. Thank God. Arthur Smith had to be on the other sideline. Like, what is this witchcraft going on in Atlanta?
Wait, you can do that?
He's like, that guy can't. Where's Tyler Algier? Where is Tyler Algier? Overreaction number 4. We're going to stay in the NFC South. Bryce Young is officially a bust and is unsalvageable as an NFL quarterback.
It could turn out that way. However, I'm going to say with a complete and utter system change, and also not just generally not having a team around him, I I'm gonna give him another good like 5 games to show me more than what we saw on Sunday, because that wasn't it.
Yeah. You and I are so locked in right now. A lot of the offenses did not look good in week 1 this
Yeah.
week. But
for sure.
you know who's looking good week one? Fouled Out Sports Podcast. Locked in, baby. Because I said the same thing. I said, I think this one might be true, unfortunately, but I'm going to give it a few more weeks before I officially call it quits on Bryce Young. But the Panthers lose Sunday 47-10 to New Orleans.
Yeah.
Bryce Young, 13 of 30, 161 and 2 picks. He was sacked 4 times and tackled by his own offensive lineman trying to
Yeah.
escape the pocket. Not a good
I
game.
mean, that last one should say enough on its own.
Well, my kind of thing too was like, I know Bryce was bad, but the entire team was completely deplorable
Yeah.
on Sunday. They let Derek Carr go 19 of 23 for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. I was thinking about this on Monday. I was sitting in the office and I was like, which fan base feels the shittiest waking up after week one of NFL football? I have a hard time saying it's not the Carolina Panthers.
Because you're finally getting your pick back, but like it's not a QB draft.
Mm-hmm.
Again, 16 more games, maybe that works itself out, but like you're in for a longer rebuild based on what you saw on Sunday.
I watched Quinn Ewers cook Michigan on Saturday, and I was like, is this not a quarterback draft? Because that guy looked really good against a good defense in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with you. It's just like I was watching Bryce Young the other day, and I was like, God, it's so bad. And he's going to be your quarterback again next season.
Yeah.
Because he has to be, because you gave away so much for him. Overreaction number 5, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills quarterback, not Jacksonville Jags pass rusher, is the MVP of the NFL.
Maybe.
Yeah, I said yes if he continues to play like this.
Yeah. I mean, he's a threat to do it every single year. He is in the extremely small group of guys who play that position that they just defy the laws of physics. And yeah, I will never say like, nah, that guy can't win that game, or that guy can't carry that team, because he's that fucking good when he's on.
The only time I will say Josh Allen cannot win a football game is when the quarterback on the other side is Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Because the 13 seconds thing that was the best game of Josh Allen's career, and he still didn't win against Patrick Mahomes. So, but yeah, I said, if he keeps playing like this, we talked about this last week. The MVP is a narrative award.
Mm-hmm.
And the narratives, if Josh Allen puts up a Josh Allen type of season with the supporting cast he has, the narrative is going to be Josh Allen dragged the Buffalo Bills to relevancy and the playoffs and blah, 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 blah. And like, look at what he did with Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. And then they left and he got even better. He's the best player in the league this season. 18 for 23, 232, 2 touchdowns, 9 rushes for 39 and another 2 touchdowns. So like, yeah, he played like it on Sunday, but please keep in mind that Arizona's defense may be the worst in the NFL. It was bad on Sunday. They gave up 14 plays of 10 yards or more. 14 of 10 yards or more to the Bills. Not good. Overreaction number 6. Sam Darnold, good at throw?
I'm going to pump the brakes on this. It's week 1. One good game does not a good throw make.
This is my new favorite thing on the podcast, is saying, like, quarterback, good at throw. Arthur Smith, not good at coach. Yeah, you know what my takeaway from the Vikings, I had 2 takeaways from the Vikings whomping the Giants in New York.
Yeah.
One, it's a debate for me between who is worse between the Panthers and the Giants right now. 2, I think that Minnesota has a really good system I think they
Hmm.
have a good coach, and I think they
Yep.
have good weapons. Like, just think about Josh Dobbs last year. He came in without practicing with the team. He like met his teammates, and then they're like, "All right, we're gonna go out and play the Falcons." And for 4 weeks, we had to get on the podcast every week and be like, "Is Josh Dobbs a top 10 quarterback? What the hell is going on here?" Because he was incredible.
Yeah.
And then when the NFL kind of figured him
So
out,
he really wasn't.
yeah, till he fell off the face of the earth, and I think put up like -2 fantasy points against the Broncos or something like that. Cost me a week of fantasy, and that's when I swore I would never play again. As I was like, Josh Dobbs. So I think they have a great system. We talked about this when JJ McCarthy got drafted there, as I was like, this is the best situation
Yeah.
for any young quarterback, because I think Kevin McConnell, really good coach, really good offensive system. You have Justin Jefferson, who's the best receiver in the world. Addison's good. They added stuff to their line. Like we talked about this part too, is that this was a playoff ready roster. They just didn't have a quarterback. So yeah, I'm gonna pump the brakes on this one too, though. Like, I'm not ready to be like, oh my God, Sam Darnold's good. But it was extremely jarring when I was watching the Bears game and the little stat line on the bottom popped up and it said Sam Darnold, 10 of 10, 136 yards and a touchdown. And I was like, wait, what? I text my dad. I know that's the stat line because I text my dad and I was like, dude, Sam Darnold is 10 of 10 for 136 and a touchdown. And we just laughed at the Giants for about 45 minutes.
So I have a question for you. Are we looking at Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson duking it out for the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL?
I would say Bryce Young might be up there, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean that's a possibility as well. However, I will say that the key difference there is the level of investment.
Oh, I mean, if we're talking about
Yeah,
worst quarterback situation,
yeah. No, no, but
absolutely.
like
Well,
I definitely think that like those are the three that you could kind of include in that conversation is like the 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 worst quarterback, right?
yeah. When I said earlier that it's probably between the Giants and Panthers for who feels the shittiest this week, I would put Cleveland there too.
Yeah,
And I don't think it's a coincidence that we're talking about those three quarterbacks being the three worst quarterback situations by play and investment level, and also
yeah,
talking about those three fan bases being the most miserable this week.
yeah,
Overreaction number 7, Joe Mixon, running back, was the most impactful addition of the offseason. I have the real take as he was great on Sunday, but if they keep giving him that type of volume at 28 years old, he will die.
yeah.
That will be it for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say like that's a great week one, but like how many games is he actually going to play?
Yeah.
Because I
30,
think if you give him 15 carries a game, he probably plays 12, maybe 15.
33 touches for over 160 yards and a touchdown. But the reason I buy this a little bit, I don't think he's the most impactful because we saw Saquon Barkley get 3 touchdowns and be the
Yeah,
overall number 1 fantasy player this weekend. But Houston was 28th in rushing yards per game last season with 92.7. They ran for an NFL leading 213 yards on Sunday. Are they going to do that every week? Absolutely not. If they give Joe Mixon 33 carries a game, will he die? Absolutely. However, if they can have like a top 15 rushing attack with Stroud and the weapons they have throwing the ball, I think that Houston offense can get really dangerous in a hurry. Just like adding another dimension to a team that's already pretty good offensively.
I'm not gonna argue that obviously like he adds a dimension to them. Um, like I said, I have questions about how often they're gonna have him and for how long they'll have like doesn't matter if he gets banged up and like starts missing like key games down the stretch. maybe they're fighting for a playoff spot or seeding. Like that also is like going to end up being a factor. Um we're not gonna know obviously until then, but like I struggle to look at that question and ever think that the answer is going to be a running back.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
not. That's why it's an overreaction. But
Yep.
um, and there are other reasons that their rushing game was so much better. It's not like just you plug in Joe Mixon and all of a sudden the running game is amazing.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I mean, I was impressed. I think the concern on the other side of that is what if the rushing attack isn't that great and Indianapolis's rushing defense is just like that bad?
Yeah.
Or they're just going to get run over all year. Overreaction number 8, the premier rookies from the draft are all bust. They're all bust. Everybody who played on Sunday is a bust. My guy, Caleb Williams, Bears quarterback, 14 for 29, 93 yards. However, becomes the first number 1 overall pick to start week 1 and win since David Carr back in 2000. Jalen Daniels, quarterback for Washington, better, 17 of 24, 184 yards, run 16 times for 88 yards and 2 touchdowns. However, 3 fumbles and left the pocket like not comfortable at all in the pocket on Sunday. If his first read wasn't there, he was running. Marvin Harrison Jr., the greatest receiving prospect we've ever seen, the king of receiving prospects. 1 catch for 4 yards. 1 catch for 4 yards. Only 3 targets on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills.
I am so like I was definitely in fantasy drafts trying to see if I could angle ways to like get him at a little bit of a value. Right now, I am very glad that I prioritized like going after Cooper Kupp and some other guys over him.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's not going to bounce back, but whew.
I have Marvin Harrison Jr. on both my fantasy teams. And
Pain.
well, I won in both leagues this week. In part because I also prioritized getting Cooper Kupp in my other league. And then I started the Bears defense in both leagues this week. But I'm at the point already. It's week 2. And I'm like, God, do I start Marvin Harrison Jr. next week? Or do I wait until he shows a little bit more signs of life? Because it's like 1 catch for 4 is bad enough. You weren't even in the game plan. Kyler Murray threw you the ball 3 times. And
yeah,
we can talk about all sorts of like the Bills allowed the 4th least fantasy points for outside receivers last year. And Arizona scored like the 28th most points for outside receivers. So like there might have been some strategy stuff, but it's like, God damn, Arizona, you just spent the 4th overall pick in the draft on a wide receiver and didn't even look at him for 4 hours on Sunday.
Yeah.
What is wrong with if the Patriots had drafted Marvin Harrison Jr. and did that, I would be losing my shit today. Like Drake May was the big winner from Sunday because he didn't play.
Yeah.
It's just like, good. Keep him on the goddamn bench. Obviously the correct take here is that it's week 1.
Yeah.
They're all rookies. I think we get so excited about the draft and want to say that these guys are going to be so good and so pro ready that we expect them to be amazing right out of the gate. And it goes back to the thing we like to say that if you're not awesome right away, you suck. And I also could see Marvin Harrison having 12 catches for 130 and 2 touchdowns against the Rams on Sunday. And we're just like, oh yeah, he's fine. No problem.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I mean, you gotta give these guys really a full season, but at the very least half a season to show some life.
Do we have 2 weeks before we call Caleb Williams a bust? I know Chicago fans are antsy, but you guys won. You guys won. Chicago.
Didn't he have like what 92 passing yards?
No, Matt. He had 93 passing yards.
You know what? I
Don't short sell.
apologize.
Yeah, don't you short sell my boy like that.
It wasn't pretty.
He's got that Tom Brady magic already where it's like even when you suck, everything else goes right. And it's okay. It's going to be okay, Caleb. They play Houston Sunday Night Football this week. And I think the NFL really thought they were doing something. They're like, yeah, two of the best young quarterbacks in the league, CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams. It's going to be awesome. And it's like, Caleb Williams might need some more time in the oven.
Yeah.
Jalen Daniels, I thought, was the best out of all the guys I mentioned this weekend, obviously, with 2 touchdowns and over 200 total yards. But God, it's just like Lamar. If they rush him 16 times a game, he will die this season. He's too skinny for this, guys. Can't do it. Final overreaction from Sunday. I probably my favorite one. The Chargers. I almost called them the San Diego Chargers. The Los Angeles Chargers are better when they take the ball out of Justin Herbert's hands.
I don't know that I'm gonna buy that. However, right now, that might actually be true because his best receiver right now is probably Lad McConkey. Right now, this season, that could very well be true, but also that is by design. So
Yeah, I agree with this, but not because I don't think Justin Herbert's good. I just think looking at what they did on Sunday, they ran 27 times for 176 yards.
yeah,
And then they threw 26 passes for 146 yards or whatever it was. So they were very balanced on Sunday, which is weird in the NFL because it is, more of a passing league. But I think just by virtue of being like, hey, we have a good defense. Let's be more balanced offensively because their 26 pass attempts was 22nd in the NFL this week. They were like top 5 in the NFL with 37.2 attempts per game last season. So, like, yeah, giving Justin Herbert more of a running game and being like, hey, Justin, like, let the rest of the team help you. We have a good defense. We can run the ball now. You don't have to put the entire game on your shoulders every single week. I think is going to make them a better team. And I also think like the real take here is that the Chargers are definitely better from a coaching and a culture perspective because Staley was ass. And we went over it last week. Like Jim Harbaugh is successful everywhere he goes, whether you like him or not. So, and it looks like he may be doing that again.
And I mean, the reality is too, anytime you are able to dominate the line of scrimmage like that and run the ball that way, like, yeah, you're gonna be better than just airing it out like 9 times out of 10 because you're not even giving the other team a chance to get their offense on the field.
Also, the Raiders might just suck.
That too.
The Raiders.
That's most likely.
That was disappointing for me on Sunday. But like so the Chargers are at Carolina this week. So I don't think we're going to get any answers here because if they demolish Carolina, it's just like, okay, like Carolina's ass.
I think Derek Brown is done for the year too. So like they're really just going to pound the ball up the middle.
They're going to run all over the Panthers this weekend. But week 3, they're at the Steelers. And week 4, they're home for the Chiefs. So it's another kind of wait and see thing where it's like, okay, they're probably going to be 2-0. Let's revisit this after week 4 and see what happens against the Steelers, who, I mean, at the very least have a really good defense.
Yeah.
At best, the best defense in the NFL. And then the Chiefs, who are the Chiefs. If you're 3-1, or good God, if you're 4-0 after that, I'll come back on here and just be like, yeah, this is it. This is it, LA. You guys finally did it. You're not going to charge.
Harbaugh good at coach.
Until you do charge. All right, back to America's favorite segment, coming back for its second season. The Bolds and Scolds for week one of the NFL season. Matt, would you like to lead us off with your bold?
Um, yeah, I think this one is probably going to surprise you because stat line was a little wonky, but like for me, it's Anthony Richardson. That 60-yard bomb that he threw to Alec Pierce. I'm not entirely convinced that Mahomes pulls that off.
Yeah, I
Not
think it.
not like the way he did it.
I don't know if it was that throw. I think it was that throw. It was either that throw or another throw. He had a throw that went 65.3 air yards
Hmm.
on Sunday, which was the third longest ever recorded in the history of the NFL since they started
Yeah,
using the next gen stats.
like I get that his like completion percentage wasn't great in that game. I would remind you that with what we just said about Joe Mixon and the way that the Texans were running the ball in that game, the Texans had 40 minutes of possession in that game to the Colts 20. And Anthony Richardson had them losing by 2. Like, good luck when he figures out how to make the layups because right now he's making Steph Curry look like a bitch.
I think you got the full Anthony Richardson experience
Yeah.
on Sunday. It's literally everything we talked about with Anthony Richardson this offseason is like,
Hmm.
yeah, he hit 350-yard bombs, which changes the math on the stat line, and
Yep.
also ran for 56 yards on 6 attempts, which is 9.3 yards an attempt and a touchdown there.
Yeah.
But went 9 of 19, completing less than 50% of his passes. And that this is exactly the problem is like, yes,
Hmm.
he does all these spectacular things. I need him to do the easy things. Like you said, he's
And
got to hit the layups.
I also like almost wonder how much of that Texans running game contributed to that
Mm-hmm.
because of like how much time he spent on the sideline kind of just getting cold. It's hard to really get into a rhythm, especially when he's like, bombing it down the field. So, but like I think too that game uh is a really good opportunity for us to kind of compare and contrast too, because like him and Stroud are kind of coming from polar opposite situations too. Like Stroud played plenty of games in college, whereas Richardson really only played one season. And then he got like 4 games in the NFL, largely by his own doing of putting his body in harm's way. But like he just needs to play games. He hasn't had the opportunity to develop in the way that Stroud did. But
Mm-hmm.
once he does, it's like no one will be able to do the things that he can do. And if he's able to do the basic things,
Yeah.
good
This
luck.
this was my whole concern with him specifically for this season is like I feel like if you just could have been 12 of 19 in this game, you probably win. It's some of those simple things, but yeah, I thought the flashes of like what this guy can be
Yeah.
were on full display on Sunday. Uh
I mean, he still got me like something like I think it was like 28 fantasy points.
oh no, he
So,
like yeah. I mean, fantasy points, we don't care about completions.
yeah.
Fuck completions. Give me the 350 yarders and the rushing touchdown. Hell yeah. My bold for week one of the NFL season. And Matt's may not have been obvious. Anybody who listens to this podcast should know this is extremely obvious. My bold is the 6-time Super Bowl champion Patriots of New England. Biggest dog on Sunday, 8.5 points at Cincinnati. Not only do they cover, they win 16-10. The whole offseason, people in Boston, O line is bad. We have no receivers. The defense is going to be bad without BB to patch it together. Look at the schedule. Find me 2 wins on the schedule. Well, guess what? The wins are right there. They're right there. They're all over the schedule. Pick a game. We can win it. Gerard Mayo coached a hell of a game on Sunday. Wicked awesome, Matt. Multiple young guys stepping up. Keon, we don't need Matt Judon White. 2.5 sacks, forced fumble. Kyle Duggar, forced fumble on what was a sure touchdown. The guy was running into the end zone. Duggar knocks it out. Gonzo, locking up Jamar. Pay me more money to do absolutely nothing, Chase. Mondre, 126 yards and a touchdown. Brisket, solid. O-line, running all over people. Did you enjoy that segment?
You really pulled out the fake accent.
My dad's going to be like, that was the greatest segment in podcast history. But for real, I was very impressed on Sunday after a very depressing offseason. And they're sucking me in already. I'm kind of looking at this week 2 game. Seattle flying across the country for a 1 p.m. start. Patriots plus 3.5. Can they do it twice? I don't know. We might not win another game all season, but at least I got this one.
I will say the real bold there should be for us, because we said, like, I am not touching that game in Survivor.
I wanted to give myself the bold because and we'll talk about Survivor here in a minute, but if you go back and listen to last week's episode, so we both agreed, like, hey, we don't want to touch that game. And then I was like, yeah, I just feel like it's going to be a weird, like 16-13 Patriots win. And it was 16-10. I was like, holy shit, that was almost exactly correct. But yeah, that veteran move by us in the Survivor pool to not pick that game.
I mean, I don't remember what you said the percentages were, but I think you said, like, that game was a pretty high percentage.
Yeah, 42% of the pool picked that game and got knocked out.
42% got knocked out week fucking 1.
Yeah. We'll talk about Survivor in a minute because it's 42 got knocked out on that game, 45% knocked out total, which, like, week 1, I think for fantasy, for gambling, for Survivor pool is the hardest week because you think you know stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't know shit. You don't know shit week 1.
You don't know shit about Dick.
Mm-mm. Or Dick about shit. All right. Scold. Week 1 scold. Go for it.
The fucking cops. Like,
we just do this one every week.
Right? Yeah. Obviously, the whole situation with Tyreek Hill being arrested shortly before his game. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the body cam footage, but it's not right. And, like, there are a few people that are more anti Tyreek Hill than you and I are, but, like, that ain't the reason to arrest this man. And I mean, it wasn't just him. They got into it with Calais Campbell too. And the whole situation was just stupid. And the thing that blows my mind too is, like, obviously you're cops in Miami. You checked his license. You clearly knew who he was. And we're like, yeah, this is going to play out well. And on top of that, like, you kind of just, like, added to his legacy in a way too by having that whole situation and then, like, giving him the opportunity to be like, oh yeah, I got arrested for the game, that I went on and had a huge game.
And doing the handcuff celebration in the end zone after he scored.
Yep.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
My biggest problem with this whole situation is that there are so many other reasons you could have arrested Tyreek Hill. Like, he's done so much horrible shit that he could have been arrested
all
for.
the important stuff under the rug.
He breaks his 4-year-old son's arm That's not big enough to arrest him. Throws his
Yeah.
pregnant wife down the stairs or whatever he did. Not enough to arrest him. Beats up a marina dock worker. Not enough to arrest him. But you pull him over and you say you need to get out of your black Lamborghini and he says no. And that's when you decide to arrest him. Fucking idiots, man.
Yep.
My scold. This might be a little bit long winded, but mine is Fox and Tom Brady specifically. And this hurts me to do because I love Tom as a player, but every year I just feel like Tom Brady's post NFL career is getting worse and worse to me. Uh, and Sunday was another rough bump in the road for him. So Fox paid Tom Brady wide receiver money, $37.5 million a year over 10 years to come and be a broadcaster. Biggest deal in the history of broadcasting for a guy who had never been in the booth before. Before the game, Fox puts out this super cringy commercial. Did you see this commercial with Tom Brady?
Yeah, I think I know
Ugh.
what you're talking
He's
about.
like,
Yeah.
he's sitting in his house, which is like a
Yeah.
gorgeous $1 million waterfront mansion. Like obviously million hundred, maybe like $100
One with
million.
like all the different versions of himself.
Yeah. And he's like
Yeah.
watching film, and then all the different versions of himself are like, yeah, the guy who took 2 snaps in JUCO wants to know why you would come back. And it shows like little kid Tom Brady, and he's like, someday I'm gonna be the GOAT. And it's like, if Tom Brady was coming back to play quarterback, that would have been a sweet commercial. Tom Brady's announcing football games. And they're like, I can't stay away from the game I love, and I'm gonna be the GOAT, and blah, time to get back to work. And I'm like, dude, it fell super flat to me and very cringy. And I had to watch it multiple times and I hated it.
I maybe even could have been okay with it if he was like becoming a coach.
Yeah.
But like, no, you're in a booth talking on camera. You have no impact on a win or a loss.
Yeah. So then this is the reason it's like a Fox Tom Brady thing, because like I hated the commercial. That all the advertising for the game was like Sunday afternoon, Tom Brady's announcing. I honestly couldn't even remember who was playing until I turned the game on, because I was like, oh, well, Tom Brady's announcing. I'm going to watch it and see how he does. So that was bad. Tom was horrible on Sunday. Tom might have been the worst announcer I've ever heard in my entire life, to be honest. And like, I know that that's probably the overreaction take, and the real take is like, hey, it's his first time. Like, give him some time, he'll get better. But he burped during the broadcast, and it was like an audible burp. He honestly like added absolutely nothing to the game. They're like, Myles Garrett like got a sack, and they're like, Tom, take us through the play. And he's like, Myles Garrett is really good at football. Great. Thanks, Tom. We know Myles Garrett good at rush. We know. But it was like, that was the whole thing. They're like, he was like, man, Micah Parsons, they move him all over the place. Why, Tom? Why are they doing that? Nobody in the world is more qualified to me to look at Deshaun Watson and be like, he was really good in Houston. He's not good here. Why? Why? Don't just tell me like he's like, Deshaun Watson's been disappointing since coming to Cleveland. Great. Thanks, Brady. Why? Like, add something. The whole reason that you are in the booth is like to teach us about the game and add to our understanding of the game. And I thought he was horrible. There was points on Sunday where he was just making noises like in the middle of the play. He's just like, oh, oh, oh. Like, what is going on?
He just showed up to watch football. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's pretty much. It was just like me on the couch being like, Micah Parsons good at rush, and Kevin Burkhardt's like, I'm gonna jump out of this goddamn booth. It was so bad. And then like to follow that up, I'm not even done yet. The post game show, like the studio show with like Strahan and Terry Bradshaw and all those guys, they're going around the desk and everybody's like, they're like, okay, who's your like star of the week or something like that? Like, it's like how we do Bolds. They're basically doing their Bolds, and everybody like named a player. And then it got to Strahan last, and he's like, I'm going with the guy who wasn't even on the field. Tom Brady, you got your first one under your belt, big dog. Great job. And I was like, okay, so like now Fox executives watch that and they're like, this sucks. How do we make people believe it didn't suck? So like Strahan does that. Monday, stories are planted all over the place of like Tom Brady, rough first half, better in second half. And they're like, just like in his playing days, Tom Brady got off to a tough start, but then figured it out and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, just because Nathan Peterman threw 4 interceptions in the first half and only threw 2 in the second half doesn't mean the second half was good. Like, yes, it was better. It wasn't good. And that's what Tom Brady was on Sunday. He was the Nathan Peterman of announcers. The second half was not good. It was better, still bad. If all of that wasn't enough for you, whoever the sideline reporter was, I forgot their name because I was so focused on how bad Tom Brady was, did a human interest piece about Deshaun Watson and did this whole story about like, man, Deshaun was so dejected at the end of last year with his shoulder injury. And they went through like all the hard work he's done to get back to, he's like, they just really wanted to be here for this game. It wasn't even like at the beginning. It was like halfway through when he was already playing like total fucking garbage. So obviously a plant by Cleveland's front office to do that. And then immediately after the game, like you heard the human interest story, the game ends, the news breaks. Deshaun Watson is being sued for sexual assault again. There's another woman in Houston suing him for sexual assault. No mention of that during the game, just that he worked really hard to rehab his poor little shoulder. Just give me a fucking break. The broadcasting, so bad again. And I muted Tom. I had to mute him. I was like, I can't listen to this shit. After the Deshaun story, I was pissed, man. I was like, I'm turning this game off and I'll just watch the film before the podcast. Because, like, he sucks. Nobody cares. He's a horrible human being. Mm-hmm. And obviously, it's Cleveland's front office just being like, hey, like, throw us a bone. So, yeah, I kept that in for like 48 hours. I had to let it all out because I was just like, this is, man. And Tom will be better, I'm sure. But, like, Tom, you got to go back and watch the film, buddy. Figure it out because that was not it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that entire broadcast was kind of a shit show.
It was absolutely brutal. And I was like, Greg Olsen died for this. Because Greg Olsen was good, man. Greg Olsen was really good last season. And
he got off to a rough start, but like he really got to like be really good.
Well, and I'm sure that's where Brady will go to, in all honesty, is like all these guys get off to rough starts. It's just like being a rookie quarterback. It's your first time.
Yeah.
You're in the big leagues, bright lights. I'm excited to see where Tom Brady is week 6, 7, 8, but man, this was a tough one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the difference here though is that no one was sucking Greg Olsen's dick. Right. Well, I mean, someone probably literally was, but not figuratively.
Third leg Greg. If you understand the reference, you're the target market for this. Yeah, go back and do yourselves a favor and look up the Miami Hurricanes rap that they wrote when Greg Olsen was on the team in the early 2000s. You would not be disappointed, I promise. Gambling picks for week 2. So we were 4-4 last week. We gave out like way more than we intended to. We lost. Derrick Henry was under 70 yards. Mark Andrews was under 46.5. The Raiders got murdered after I said +3. And Jahmyr Gibbs, running back for the Lions, was under his rushing total.
Yeah.
We won. David Montgomery went over his rushing total. Jared Goff went over his rushing total of 0.5 yards. Ended with 7. The Lions covered 3.5. They actually, the line went from 3.5 to 5.5, and they covered that too. So, and I gave out Chicago's defense to score a touchdown at over +400 odds, and they did it. Which, when they scored the special teams touchdown, I had a whole like soliloquy planned for the fact that DraftKings doesn't pay you out on a special teams touchdown.
Yeah.
Only if the defense scores. And then they did it on what might be the single worst play of the entire NFL season with Will Levis. I can't believe he threw that ball.
Yeah,
Oh.
that was pretty bad.
As someone who started Chicago's defense and special teams in 2 fantasy leagues this week and needed someone to help me because Marvin Harrison had 1 catch for 4 yards. Thank you, Will Levis. You are my Mayo King. All right. So this week, we're gonna do 4 picks this week, not 8. We'll both give one for Thursday night football and one for the weekend. Yeah. So Thursday night football is the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. I'm going to keep it super simple. Buffalo Bills money line plus 114 right now. They're plus 2.5 in this game. My thing on gambling is like any spread that's less than 3, just take the money line. The odds are better. Like you're getting way better odds because you're going from like minus 115 or 105, whatever it is right now, to plus money. And they're not going to lose by 2. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to take the Bills to win. Buffalo owns Miami. They've won 13 of the last 15 games against Miami, including the last 4. Josh Allen, 10-2 career against Miami. Don't overthink it. Buffalo's going to win. I think Mostert and Achane are both banged up, might not play this weekend. Just don't fall for it. Josh Allen's going to win this game.
Given what we saw this weekend, I'm gonna take Khalil Shakir to surpass 40 yards receiving at minus 115. He feels like the safe guy for him right now. So
I like Shakir. Obviously, he was my breakout player of the year. He had a touchdown last week against Arizona. Those are the official picks. That's what we're grading ourselves on. But Josh Allen is also minus 115 to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
And James Cook over 2.5 catches is minus 115. So for the weekend, pick any game, Sunday through Monday. I had 2 I liked. I'm just going to try not to overthink this because 96% of the bets that have been placed so far are placed in this direction. But the Chargers are minus 6.5 at Carolina. And I don't see a world where Carolina keeps this close. I will take Chargers minus 6.5. The other one I wrote down is the Rams are plus 102 on the road at Arizona.
I mean, I'm going to look at that same game, the Rams in Arizona. Obviously, I know like the Puka Nacua injury is not great for them, but we saw Cooper Kupp come back and be Cooper Kupp. I'm hammering that money line for the Rams. Like especially coming off a loss like that, like I don't foresee Stafford and that offense like not being able to just fully overwhelm that Cardinals defense.
Yeah, I was actually impressed by the Rams on both sides of the ball, offense and defense.
Yeah.
Like I was like, we really thought the Lions were just going to run all over them. And like when it came to nut crunching time, they did. But I thought they really hung in there without Aaron Donald and Ernest Jones.
Well, and I mean that interception aside, for Stafford, I don't think that was necessarily a great decision, but we also know that he's tends to trust his arm a little too much. Outside of that, like I felt he played like a phenomenal game. That entire first half, it was almost impossible to get to him because he was getting the ball out so quickly. There just wasn't an opportunity to get to him.
Yeah, I thought Stafford was one of the best 5 players I watched this week. And it
Yeah.
may not show up statistically, but I was like, yeah, like him and Cooper Kupp. I talked about Cooper Kupp a lot this preseason. And one of my bold predictions was that he would triple crown Puka Nacua, which now with the injury looks like I'm going to hit that one. But I thought even if they were both healthy all season, he was going to do it because that connection is like really there,
Yeah.
and as good as Puka is, for Cooper and Stafford to have that connection over the years, like the receiving props aren't up for that game against Arizona this weekend, but I'm probably going to smash all of Cooper Kupp's overs
Yeah.
as well. Like I'll probably take him to score, probably take him over yards, over catches, because he was 10 catches, 110 and a touchdown against the Lions. So
Yeah.
last thing before we sign off, the survivor pool. 45.75% of the pool was eliminated in week 1. Again, notoriously a very difficult week to actually pick correctly. Absolute veteran move by us to not pick that Bengals game. 42.04% of the pool eliminated on that game alone. Obviously the worst pick. Most popular correct pick was the Bills to beat the Cardinals with, I think it was like 12%.
Mm-hmm.
The Seahawks had like 10%, which is where we went. Won't lie, was a little nervous while that game was on,
They
but
they played a little fast and loose with it, but they got it done.
they
That's
got a
the part that matters. And we don't have to rely on them again the rest of the year.
beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
2 birds, 1 stone.
Veteran move. This is why you guys listen to the podcast. Matt, I've scoured the games. There are 2 options for this weekend. The Chargers on the road at Carolina and the Baltimore Ravens at home for the Raiders. I think it has to be one of those. And I'm leaning towards Baltimore, to be honest. They're 9.5-point favorites. The Chargers just put up 176 rushing yards on the Raiders. I shudder to think about what Baltimore is about to do to them after losing that week 1 game at Kansas City. I think the Chargers are going to win this weekend as well. Obviously, I'm taking them -6.5. I think, last week, my long shot bet that I gave out was the Bears defense to score a touchdown. And I was like, I came back this week and I was like, should I just give out a long shot bet like every week and just see what happens? So this week, Chargers -20 at Carolina is +504. They got to win by 20 or more. So I think that's going to win, but like the rule is you take the best team you can against the worst team you can.
Yeah.
And Carolina is the worst team you can take, but the Ravens, I think, are the best team that we can take this week.
I will always lean more towards betting on the better team as opposed to betting against a worse team.
You just don't know what's going to happen in the NFL sometimes.
Yeah.
So we're locking in the Ravens for the survivor pool for this week. It had 30% of the picks right now, but usually after like a big culling like we had last week, it's pretty quiet the following. It'll be quiet for like 3 weeks and then something horrible will happen.
Yeah.
But that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. And you can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. There's probably going to be a video of me doing a Boston accent on the TikTok this week. So you guys can look for that and enjoy that. We'll be back next week, Thursday, the 19th, with the week 2 podcast going over all of the 2-0 teams and all the 0-2 teams, who is the most surprising and who do we think is going to bounce back or fall from grace. So that's a fun podcast every year as well, just like this Overreactions pod was. But for now, everybody enjoy the football this weekend. Week 2, we're back. It's awesome. So happy to be back talking football with you, buddy.
Yep.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys. Bye,
Mom.
Robin.